Mr. Lanza, let's go to you first, shall we? What a dramatic night. Did you see this coming?
We did actually. You saw a lot of consolidating behind Joe Biden in the past couple days, and so we knew that Super Tuesday was going to be close between both of the Democratic candidates, and I think that's what it ultimately showed. What it also showed is that it looks like we're headed to a brokered convention.
And Beth Gardner, is this now a two-horse race, really, between the two frontrunners?
It does seem that way, and that is a really big change from where we were even 3, 4, 5 days ago. I think what the dynamic has been over the past many months has been Bernie Sanders sort of rushing ahead based on the support of his really progressive supporters on the left of the party, and the rest of the party, the sort of center left, as it were, divided between really a large and, it seemed for a long time, growing number of contenders. Over the last 3 or 4 days since the South Carolina primary, which Biden won very handily over the weekend, we have seen the center-left consolidate really, really fast behind Joe Biden. And it does seem now like it's going to be a head-to-head matchup, probably stretching for a pretty long time. I don't necessarily agree it's going to end up as a contested convention, but certainly a really contested primary. And it's a primary in some ways that I think recapitulates what we saw in 2016 when it was Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton. And in that this is really the divide that we see within the Democratic Party, the sort of, Sanders argument that we need a revolution and a really, really dramatic change in the way that the country operates, and that promise is what will motivate and win voters, versus Biden arguing for more of a kind of a safe pair of hands argument, and that we need to kind of, quotes, go back to normal. So they both have their arguments, but that is what we're going to see, I think, as the argument.
Let's bring Brian Lanza back in, shall we? Who do you think Donald Trump will be more frightened of taking on then? Bernie Sanders, the more revolutionary left candidate, or Joe Biden, the more establishment, if you like, safe pair of hands voice?
I would like to look at it not who we're frightened of, as who we're most eager to compete against. And I think that probably would be Senator Joe Biden. I think it's important to remember that as the American economy, as the American middle class deteriorated over the last 30 years, Joe Biden was at the helm in Congress, doing very little. In fact, pushing the middle class outside, pushing them down, putting a lot of burdens on their economic success. So I think if we look at it from the number standpoint, from an economic standpoint, I think we're most eager to run against Joe Biden because his record on the economy, his record for the middle class is supremely subpar compared to our record.
Interesting. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think that there are some flaws in Joe Biden's candidacy as outlined?
I think that both of these candidates, Sanders and Biden, both have a lot of baggage. We have a 77-year-old and a 78-year-old now competing to run against Trump, who I think is, at the moment, the oldest ever president.
The youthful candidate, Donald
Trump.
Right.
Sanders had a heart attack not long ago. So, with Sanders, I think his baggage, or what his opponents would see as his liabilities, are going to be, this is a guy who took his honeymoon in Moscow, who, only very recently was interviewed on TV with some kind words for Fidel Castro and the regime in Cuba. The argument against him would be similar to what we heard here against Jeremy Corbyn, that, he's too far left, he's going to alienate the sort of middle-of-the-road voter. Whereas the argument against Biden would be, first of all, he's started this race really as the overwhelming favorite for the nomination, former vice president, and a pretty popular guy. But, he's really looked very shaky on the debate stage. Age may be just a number, but he has sort of shown it, been quite rambly, and I think that's why there were initially a lot of reservations among the moderate Democrats about consolidating with him. There's also a lot of reservations about him on the left of the party, to do with his support many years ago for a crime bill that's seen as having paved the way for sort of the era of mass incarceration. And of course, you have to remember that it's his son, Hunter Biden, who was at the center of the whole Ukrainian business that led to Trump's impeachment. Biden certainly has been shown not to have done anything wrong or illegal there, but it does not look good. And, I think that in a matchup against Trump, you're going to be hearing a lot about that, and an effort from Trump to sort of say, look, you're accusing me of corruption and all this sort of malfeasance, but Biden's dirty too, in the same way that we saw in 2016, the Trump camp try to portray Hillary as sort of, everybody's dirty and just sort of take your pick kind of thing.
Brian Lanza, I can see you smiling during points of that.
Joe Biden doesn't have an answer of why his son was in Ukraine on that board. I think if you've seen his answer over the last 4 months, he views it as him doing nothing wrong. I think the American people look at it and say that is a clear conflict of interest. And I think, from our standpoint, conflict of interest, if you have the average American, they think that's corruption. And so I think Joe Biden has to figure out his answer for his son and the apparent conflict of interest. That's a problem. I mean, it's we can say we muddled the waters in 2016 of what we did to Hillary, but she had a clear case of special rules for her. And I think this becomes another example of special rules for Hunter Biden, where when you have this, the son of the vice president making money off a foreign government board, that is conflict of interest. I'm not saying, it's criminal, but I'm saying it's conflict of interest, and the voters look at that and they hate politicians who are enriching themselves with these conflict of interest examples. And Biden hasn't provided a. We'll see where we are.
Yeah.
Just to bring Beth Gardner in, do you think this really matters? Donald Trump has had his fair share.
Right. I mean, I think if you look at the nepotism and the corruption and the self-dealing of the Trump administration, it's here, and what Biden's done is down here. But I think Brian has just previewed for us what you are going to hear in a general election campaign if it ends up as Trump against Biden.
We're out of time. Thank you both for a very lively debate on a pretty dramatic Super Tuesday. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.